feminism has been an ideology that has really impacted, particularly a daughter's desire to have children. And since we have 4 daughters and all of them seem to really, really get excited about having kids, I know that one of the things that and you've really, I think especially recently, gone deep into, okay, how do we create a uniquely feminine culture in our family where actual femaleness is lifted up as a positive thing. It's good to be a female. It's good to be a girl. And I think one of the things that is happening to so many kids today is they are really raised in androgynous environments, right? Where there is no real distinction between male and female. Many schools, there used to be lots of girl and boy separated schools. Now we do almost everything together. And so oftentimes what happens is a girl enters puberty and she's been competing with boys her whole life. She's been in an environment in which, both sexes are just there are elements of their gender is being like, diminished, and this oftentimes to the advantage of maybe being competitive in this environment. And all of a sudden, she has this monthly cycle that comes upon her, and it's just really like I don't want this. Like it doesn't help me actually achieve what I want to achieve in my life. And so this like incredible superpower that women have to reproduce is just considered a net negative. And so how do I get rid of this? And it's not surprising that when the sort of the transsexual ideology started to infect society, that it really took off more than any other group with middle school girls, right? The social contagion, the transgender world was like something like 90% in boys that were struggling with wanting to be girls. And it was a tiny percentage. And that's really when people saw it as this clear sort of gender dysphoria that was really rooted in something that was going on with boys, especially younger boys even. But it was very rare, but it was certainly, something that had happened, but it was almost non-existent within girls. And then when the transgender movement took off, it just erupted as a social contagion within middle school girls who were coming to puberty. So I know that one of the things that you guys have been talking a lot about as kind of the women of our family is like, how do we create a positive female culture? You guys just had this amazing 80th birthday party for your mom where all the women of the family got together and started to just really celebrated what it meant to be a female. So yeah, what would you recommend, especially for young moms who have girls or dads listening to this that have daughters? How do we create sort of a pro female culture, not just
Mhm.
for them as individuals, but no, it's good to be a girl, it's good to be a daughter, it's good to be a woman.
Yeah. Well, I think, I got to experience a lot of this growing up because I generationally come from, um, a family line of like, the women in my family are very crafty and, like to do sewing projects together and quilting and things like that, and so, culturally growing up, there was always a hand project that the women were working on together. So when we would get together for different holidays or occasions, that was oftentimes how we would kind of pass the time or visiting or, entertaining ourselves. But um the the for now, like now fast forward to now we have 4 daughters and then now we have a daughter-in-law. So our girl circuit is complete. We have all 5 daughters now. And so but when before we had our daughter-in-law, it was just the girls were, like, early teen, and then lots of teenagers. I've had a teenager I was doing the math the other day. I think I've had a teenager in the house for 12 years. So, 1 to 5 teenagers in the house for 12 years. So, this has been quite, like a baptism by fire kind of a thing where we had to figure this out. But, part of what is so hard for girls is when their cycles start, it becomes such a negative it can be such a negative thing. And so we've had to have many, 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 many conversations over years to, um to talk about the positive side, like what it actually is, what's going on, that we have a superpower that God has given us, and that um, the different ways to handle the pain that can come with it and the discomfort, and um, how we can serve each other during that time has become real fruitful or like very girl bonding, I guess you would say. And mm, I when the kids were younger, I very much would emphasize the differences between boys and girls. I think that's very good to do. That's it's crazy that that's a taboo thing to say because that is so basic. That is so foundational of human life. And so, uh, talking about how um, just different things that we would do that were this is for the girls, and then the boys are going to do this thing over here, and so, not everything, but sometimes things were pretty clear that we were trying to. And then, like as my family grew, I had lots of nieces, and so my mom would kind of have these different things. Tea parties became a big thing in our like the one time that you get to use your china and things like that. And so yeah, we just had an 80th birthday party for my mom, and it was for all the women of the family. So the daughters-in-law, the granddaughters-in-law, nieces, granddaughters. So we had probably, I forgot to count, but maybe like 30 females, 25 or 30 females present across 4 generations. Uh, that was pretty powerful, and we got to make some yummy food and celebrate my mom in a very girly way. We all dressed up, and we all some people wore funny hat or, like, pretty hats and things like that, so very girly. Um, but within that, I will have to say, like, not everyone like, you can there is a spectrum of girliness, and that's okay. Some girls, you can dress up without going all the way to the hilt. Um, you can be fancy without having to be sparkly, things like that. So, just encouraging the femininity within the different personality types and love of frill or not love of frill. So, I think that, being comfortable within that, those different tastes and preferences and things is fine. But I think that we should not be afraid to emphasize the differences. I recently saw a little boy who was wearing nail polish, and I was shocked. I was like, "Wait, no, 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 no. This girls wear nail polish." And that's just funny to me that that is becoming a thing that has to be said. So there are these little things, little messages that are being sent that I feel like we're gonna have to become more and more. We're gonna become more and more obvious in this world by the things that we allow and don't allow, and it kind of, unfortunately, kind of causes you to be a little more dogmatic because where there was gray before, it's way too gray, and now we are dealing with these things.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's interesting, in Leviticus, it specifically calls out, like, the importance of men not wearing women's clothing or women not wearing men's clothing as an abomination. This word is really tricky for, I think, English listeners. It sounds so incredibly like the worst thing ever. But abomination is a kind of thing that is sort of a culture destroying type of sin. Like, one of the things that I just read in Genesis was that when Jacob was moving all of his sons to Egypt, Joseph said, "Hey, make sure you tell Pharaoh that you're shepherds, and then he'll let you have all this land because shepherds are an abomination to the Egyptians." It doesn't mean that if you keep reading the story, it's not that they hated Jacob and his family. It was simply that in Egypt, there's this culture of agrarian culture. To be an Egyptian, actually, part of the culture is that you are agrarian, that you're attached to the Nile River, and so we don't want this foreign culture coming in. It's something that it would destroy our culture to begin to open the door for the possibility that people in our culture could be shepherds or something, right? So they had kind of a cultural allergy um, to being kind of shepherds. And God said, "Look, it's important that you create this very strong, clear distinction between male and female, because there's something that's going to infect the culture if you don't." That's what he means by an abomination. There's a cultural contagion that you're going to start within, and I think that's what we're seeing now is that this kind of gender bending is we think it's cute and fun, and it's just part of our way of celebrating somebody's individual self expression, but it's actually going to do something to the culture. And this plummeting fertility rate, this lack of desire to have children, this lack of appreciation for our God given gender are all really symptoms of this movement that's occurred.